Welcome back, my dear followers. This is a new episode of the History of the American Mafia, a podcast written by Fabio Fabiano, translated and read by Grace Cadlisi. I do hope you enjoy today's episode. Now, let's meet Vincent Taylor. They called him Jimmy Blue Eyes. Alo was a key figure in New York's post-Prohibition Genovese Mafia family. He served as a liaison between Sicilian-Italian Mafia and Meyer Lansky's criminal organization. He was, as we'll see, Meyer Lansky's partner in the construction of various casinos in Florida and Cuba. He was born in Manhattan, New York City, on May 26, 1904, son of immigrants from Italy, precisely Cosenza, in the south of Italy. His father, Salvatore, worked as a tailor in a clothing factory. His name was Giulio Scalzo. Vincent Taylor, after leaving school at the age of 14, went to work as a clerk for a Wall Street firm. Reportedly frustrated at his office work, Alo began taking part in robberies in the early 1920s, and in October 1923, the police arrested him for committing a robbery in a jewelry store. He was sentenced to 5 to 12 years in prison for a second-degree armed robbery and was incarcerated in Sing Sing State Prison. In prison, Alo also worked as a clerk. After his release, Jimmy Blue Eyes contacted mobsters involved in racketeering in the Bronx, only to become in 1926 a full member of the powerful New York family of Joseph Joe the Boss Masseria. Following the murder of Joe Masseria, he was appointed capo regime by the clan led by Joe Adonis. He extended his businesses to prostitution, drug trafficking, and gambling in Brooklyn. In 1929, Lucky Luciano introduced Alo to Meyer Lansky. Luciano turned Alo into Lansky's bodyguard because he had become a valuable source of income for the criminal organization. Some researchers think that Luciano actually wanted Alo to control Meyer Lansky. However, both Lansky and Alo aspired to switch from gangsters to businessmen. Therefore, the two mafiosis immediately became friends. When Alo first met Lansky, Alo was working on building a gambling house in Florida, and when he realized that Lansky could be the perfect partner for his ambitious project, he asked him to join him and become his partner. From the beginning of the building of the casino, the two criminals paid bribes to local criminal organizations, politicians, and corrupt law enforcement officials. When they opened their first casino, there was no competition. Profits took off so high that Alo and Lansky soon opened a second casino in Florida. The business relationship between the administration and the mafia would continue uninterrupted until 1947. In the late 1939, the FBI learned that Alo had become a partner in the Farm Casino in Broward County, Florida. In the following decade, according to FBI sources, Jimmy Blue Eyes became one of the top lieutenants in Harlem in the crime family, then led by Frank Costello. In the years following World War II, Alo worked alongside Meyer Lansky to build gambling houses in Havana, Cuba. In April 1946, Alo's name was listed in immigration records when he returned with his wife from a short trip from Cuba. Alo was arrested for vagrancy by the New York police in August 1947. The vagrancy charge was unsustained, but it allowed the police to question him about his mob connections and the January 8th murder of waterfront union leader Anthony Hintz. Alo admitted knowing Frank Costello, Joe Adonis, Meyer Lansky, when presented with a list of names of suspects in Hintz's murder. Alo admitted not only that he knew them, but that he had seen them in Florida shortly before the murder was committed. He claimed no knowledge of the murder plot, telling investigators if they want to kill someone, that's their business. FBI reports in 1958 suggested that Jake Lansky represented the financial interests of Jimmy Blue Eyes Alo and Meyer Lansky in their casino in the Hotel Nacional in Havana, Cuba. Those interests, along with many investments in gambling activities made by other American criminals in Cuba, were lost following the Castro Revolution. Hotel casinos in Havana had been nationalized by Castro in 1960. Following a police raid in the Bronx, the loan shark racket apparently financed by Vincent was unearthed in September 1963. Bronx District Attorney Isidore Dollinger brought before a grand jury. He was also considered one of the most prominent lieutenants of the boss Vito Genovese, who was also implicated in the criminal activity of usury. According to Dollinger, criminals were lending out about $4 million a year, preying on indebted players and charging interest rates of 156%. Alo's brother, Frank, a Bronx resident, was called to testify before the grand jury. Frank Alo refused to make any statement and cited the Fifth Amendment. Alo was boss Carlo Gambino's godson. Gambino ran a clothing transport company in the 1960s, and Alo was a close friend of Carlo's son, Tommaso Gambino. During that period, Joe Colombo and Carlo Gambino were allies and business partners. Carlo Gambino had convinced Joe Colombo to make his godson a boss. Following the shooting of Joe Colombo, Carlo proposed that Vincent was to be promoted to acting boss of the Colombo crime family, while Colombo was convalescent. In 1970, Alo was convicted of obstructing justice. The New York District Attorney's Office stated, Alo is one of the most significant figures in organized crime in the United States. He's closely associated with Meyer Lansky from Miami, who is at the pinnacle of organized crime. Alo was described as charming and intelligent. He was well liked by his associates. On March 9, 2001, Alo died of natural causes in Florida at the age of 96. He was later buried in Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx.